My husband's obsessed coworker wouldn't stop harassing him for his secret hot sauce recipe until it finally ended with the guy getting fired. I never thought a simple bottle of hot sauce could cause this much chaos in my husband's workplace. For years, my husband has had this hobby of experimenting with flavors, mixing peppers and spices like an artist with paint. He calls it his therapy after long days of wiring panels and fixing outlets as an electrician. Over time, his homemade hot sauce became something of a legend among our friends and family. People would beg him to bring a jar to barbecues, birthdays, even to work sometimes. But one rule was unbreakable. He never gave away the recipe. That summer, in early July, we were invited to a barbecue at his boss's house. It was the first big get-together since spring, and everyone from the company was there with their families. My husband spent 2 evenings perfecting his sauce for the event. It's a thick, smoky blend with layers of heat that don't just burn your tongue, they dance on it. He marinated chicken wings, tenders, and steak tips in it. When we arrived, the smell alone drew people in like moths to a flame. That's where Cameron came in, the new guy. It was his first month at the company, and everyone was still getting used to him. He was talkative, loud, and had this habit of acting overly confident about everything. When he took his first bite of the chicken wings, he froze mid-chew, then looked at my husband like he'd just witnessed a miracle. "Dude, what is this sauce?" he said with his mouth full. "My own recipe," my husband replied with a small smile. Cameron's eyes widened. "You made this yourself? No way. You gotta hook me up with that recipe." My husband laughed it off politely, saying, "Sorry, man, that's my secret weapon." Everyone chuckled, thinking it was just friendly banter. None of us realized this moment would be the start of weeks of pure irritation. By the end of the night, Cameron must have asked 5 more times. "Come on, bro, I'll pay you. Just tell me what peppers you use. I swear I won't share it with anyone." My husband kept refusing with a smile, not wanting to make it awkward. I wish that had been the end of it. The Monday after the barbecue, my husband left the house smelling faintly of smoked paprika and detergent, like he always does after a weekend of cooking and cleaning. I packed his lunch, leftover steak tips, a small container of coleslaw, and a slice of cornbread, and tucked a tiny bottle of his hot sauce in a plastic bag. It's something I've done for years, a comfort ritual. When he's wiring up panels in some dusty basement, he can take a bite of home and remember he's more than the job. By 9:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was a text from him. "Cameron's here." First words out of his mouth. "Bro, the sauce." I laughed out loud alone in the kitchen, thinking it was the kind of small office joke that would die on its own. I typed back, "Tell him it's a state secret. Top clearance only." He replied with a thumbs up and a lightning bolt emoji, the joke between us for anything electrician-level serious. For a couple of hours, the day went quiet. I washed dishes, watered the plants, and folded laundry with a podcast droning in the background. Around noon, the phone buzzed again. He asked 4 times. 4. While I was mid-ladder on a ceiling fan. Also tried to peek at my lunch. I told him it's not for sale. I stared at that last sentence longer than I meant to. Not for sale. It's funny how much weight a simple line can carry. The sauce had always been part of our life, almost a small family tradition, equal parts pride and privacy. There was never a price tag on it. People sometimes pressed, but nobody had ever acted like it was an obligation. By the time he came home that evening, I could see the strain in the way he set his tool bag down. He kissed me, took off his boots, and sighed as if the house itself could wring the weight out of him. "Rough day?" I asked. "Not rough," he said, "just repetitive, like living inside a broken record store." Cameron started with, "So what's the base? Vinegar, citrus, fermented." Then it turned into, "I'll trade you my dry rub for yours." Then, "We're teammates, right?" "Team share. Teams share the workload," I said, handing him a glass of water. "Not family recipes." He took a drink, nodded, and gave me a sad smile. He actually hovered when I opened my lunch. If I didn't know better, I'd think he was going to photograph the bottle. He didn't, right? "No," he said. I kept it in my bag. But he asked again during cleanup. "Write it down for me, bro. I'll memorize it and burn it. Hand to God." I watched him shake his head and felt a protective heat coil under my ribs, the same way it does when someone tailgates you on an empty road and then honks like you're the problem. It wasn't just the asking, it was the refusal to hear no. On Tuesday, it ramped up. My husband texted at 10:05 a.m. He says he's entitled after bringing beers to the BBQ. I told him, "You brought a 6-pack. I brought marinated protein for 25. At noon, he cornered me by the supply closet. "Just the pepper ratio, man." I told him to back off. At 2, I moved the little bottle to my glove compartment. Felt ridiculous, but I don't want him messing with my stuff. When he got home, he unspooled the day, Cameron asking hypothetical questions. "If you had to choose between habanero and Fresno for body, which?" Slipping workplace compliments into bribes. "You're the best on the crew, let me just learn from you." And then the passive-aggressive gambit. "We don't gatekeep around here, do we?" Every time my husband repeated his line in different clothes. "It's my recipe. I don't share it. Please respect that." "Maybe he'll get bored eventually," I offered, though my voice made it sound like a wish I didn't believe. "Maybe," he said, but he was already rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Or maybe he'll try harder." He tried harder. By Wednesday morning, Cameron had graduated from asking to strategizing. When my husband arrived at a new construction site, Cameron was already there, leaning on the hood of his truck, coffee in hand like some bargain bin TV detective. "Morning," my husband said, walking around him. "Hey, bro," Cameron said. "So I was thinking, if I can't get the recipe, how about I just watch you make a batch sometime? Just like, hang out, learn by doing. I'll bring beer. I'm free Saturday. We're leaving Saturday," my husband said. "Family vacation." "Okay," Cameron said, smiling too fast. "Tonight then?" "No," my husband said. "Not tonight, not ever." "I'm not sharing it." "Man," Cameron said, and the word came out flat, like a plank of wood. "I don't get the big deal." "That's because it doesn't belong to you," my husband said. "Drop it." He told me this later at the kitchen table as he meticulously cleaned a smudge off the face of his voltage tester. He's not a flashy man. He solves problems for a living and goes to bed on time. If there's one thing I love most about him, it's how steady he is. That's how I knew this wasn't small anymore. A steady man doesn't fidget with a tool that's already clean. On Thursday, Cameron escalated to trivia host. He'd slide questions into the workday like wrenches into pockets. "What's your vinegar? Apple cider or white? You ever toast your spices? You strain or leave it rustic?" He framed them as learning general technique, like every other question wasn't scaffolding for the same single thing. At lunch, my husband skipped the sauce entirely and ate his sandwich dry while Cameron narrated his disappointment. "No sauce today? Because of me? That's petty, bro." "It's boundaries," my husband said. Cameron laughed like that was a punchline. "No such thing as boundaries among friends." "We're co-workers," my husband said, standing. "And we're done with this conversation." That night, we spread the vacation checklist across the bed. Chargers, sunscreen, the hotel reservation, the cat sitter schedule, and my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail, but curiosity got me and I played it on speaker. "Hey, this is Cameron. Got your number from the group text. Listen, just wanted to say I'm not trying to cause drama or anything. I just think it'd be cool if we shared a little culinary knowledge, you know? Tell your man I'm not the enemy." My husband and I stared at the phone like it had crawled onto the duvet on 8 legs. "How'd he get my number?" I asked. "Boss sent a general safety update to everyone last week," my husband said slowly, tracing back the thread. "Emergency contact list attached. He must have saved it." I deleted the voicemail and blocked the number. "This is off limits," I said. "He doesn't get to route around you and come through me." "Agreed," my husband said. "Tomorrow I'm talking to the boss." Friday came with fog and coffee and the heavy thud of a decision sitting between us. At the shop, my husband found his boss, a practical man with a shaved head and reading glasses, tired from peering at bids. He laid it out. The questions, the cornering, the voicemail to me. His boss listened, one hand on the edge of his desk like he was holding it still. When my husband finished, there was a long half-breath of silence. "Okay," the boss said. "That's enough. I'll handle it." "I'm not trying to make trouble," my husband said, "because men like him are conditioned to apologize for asking not to be harassed." "You're not," his boss said. "You're asking for peace while you do your work." "That's reasonable. I'll talk to him. You won't be on the same assignment for a while." When my husband texted me the update, the relief I felt wasn't triumph. It was the small exhale of getting a door latched before a storm. We were leaving for vacation the next morning. Just a week, ocean air, sand crusted in shoes, the sound of gulls and distant laughter. A week where the most pressing decision would be sunscreen or shade. Except just before noon, Cameron materialized at the job site like loose cable sparking at the wrong time. "So we're really doing this?" Cameron said, arms out as if my husband had invited a duel. "Going to the boss because I asked about a sauce?" "I went to the boss," my husband said calmly, "because I told you no, and you kept asking." Cameron's laugh sounded like a cough in the throat of a machine. "You gatekeep everything, man. It's pathetic. Respecting my no is not gatekeeping. You act like it's nuclear codes. It's peppers and vinegar. And it's mine," my husband said. "My time, my process, my recipe." "Everyone loved it at the barbecue," Cameron said, leaning in. "That makes it public domain." My husband stared at him, stunned into a rare moment of speechlessness. "That's not how anything works," he said. "Whatever," Cameron said. "We'll talk again after your little trip." "No, we won't," my husband said. "Stop asking." The boss came through that afternoon, and later my husband told me he'd watched the door of the site office close behind them for 10 long minutes. When it opened, Cameron walked out with a face like a slammed drawer. He didn't look at my husband. He didn't speak. But silence in that moment felt like an agreement signed under duress. We left at dawn the next morning, the car humming low and steady along an empty highway. I watched the sky turn from iron to peach in the rearview mirror and tried to let the week slip off my bones. The vacation was exactly what we needed. Chairs that reclined in the sand, salt air, long afternoon naps. We walked to a pier at sunset one night and my husband leaned on the rail and said, "You know, the first batch of that sauce came from a disaster." I turned to him. "What do you mean?" "I over-reduced the vinegar," he said, smiling. It was so sharp I thought my eyebrows would crawl off my face. I started adding things to round it out. Roasted garlic, a little brown sugar, charred onion, smoked paprika, then the peppers. By the time it was done, it tasted like a campfire taught to be polite. "A campfire taught to be polite," I repeated, laughing. "I love that." He looked out at the water, and the sea breathed in and out beneath us. "I know it's just sauce," he said. "But it's mine!" I messed up and learned and tried again. I don't want to hand that work to someone who thinks asking 6 times is the same as earning a yes. "You don't owe anyone an explanation," I said, but I was grateful he gave me one anyway. We came back tan and rested, shells rattling in a little bag in the glove compartment. I half hoped Cameron had burned himself out while we were gone, that the boss's talk had sanded off the edges of his fixation. We stopped by headquarters for timesheets and parts, and the building smelled like coffee and coil cleaner, familiar harmless things. Cameron was there. He beelined toward my husband like a magnet freed from a desk. "How was your vacation?" he asked in the tone of someone inspecting a receipt. "Good," my husband said, sidestepping. "Excuse me." "So," Cameron said, keeping pace. "Thought about the recipe?" "No," my husband said. "And stop asking." "You're being ridiculous," Cameron snapped, loud enough that 2 guys by the parts shelves glanced over. "I'm entitled to it." There it was, out loud. Not implied, not joked, but declared like a flag planted in someone else's yard. My husband stopped so abruptly that Cameron almost bumped into him. "Entitled to what I made?" he asked. Voice low and even, the way he gets when he's measuring twice before cutting once. "You've asked me, what, 2 dozen times? And I've said no every time." "That answer isn't going to change. Stop asking." Cameron's mouth tightened. "You can't keep it to yourself forever." "Watch me," my husband said. Then he walked into the boss's office and closed the door. I waited in the truck, hands tight on the steering wheel even though we weren't moving. When he came out, he climbed in and stared ahead for a beat, exhaling through his nose. "Second warning," he said. "For Cameron?" He nodded. "Boss told him he's off my jobs indefinitely. Told the team not to share the radio frequency from my truck. If Cameron wants to talk to me, it goes through the office." "What did Cameron say?" "He didn't," my husband said. "He just stood there with that look like someone stole his lunch money." We drove home in a silence that wasn't empty so much as full. Of questions. Of relief. Of the knowledge that we'd crossed out of annoying and into official. That evening, while he showered, I stood in front of our spice shelf and ran my finger along the labels like beads on a rosary. Cumin, coriander, smoked paprika, ancho, guajillo, cayenne. Each one a choice he made, a memory of experiments past. I thought about the first time I'd tasted the sauce he was proud of, the way he'd hovered for my reaction like a kid presenting a science fair project. He'd whispered, "Too much?" And I'd said, "Just enough." We'd laughed. We'd eaten. There hadn't been a contract, just an understanding between 2 people at a kitchen counter. This thing is ours. The next week, Cameron didn't show up at any of my husband's sites. Word travels along job crews the way heat travels through copper, fast. A couple of guys texted my husband memes about Area 51 secret sauce, and he sent back eye rolls. The joke from friends didn't bother him. Jokes respect the answer underneath. It's the demand that curdles. And then, like clockwork, a 2-line text landed on a Wednesday afternoon from an unknown number. "You can't keep it from me. I'll get it one way or another." He showed it to the boss the next morning. The number was blocked. The frequency list was quietly updated. For the first time, I watched my husband hesitate before putting the little bottle in his lunch. "Leave it home," I said softly. He nodded, closed the bag, and kissed my forehead. "It's just sauce," he said, then after a beat. "And also not." That afternoon, the boss called a brief team meeting in the warehouse. He kept it short, practical. If someone says no, you respect it. End of story. Anyone has an issue, you bring it to me. We're here to wire buildings, not to bully recipes out of coworkers. Men shuffled. A couple of them coughed to hide grins. But the message landed. Cameron got the message too, or rather, he heard it and decided it was a dare. And when he finally said the quiet part out loud, "I'm entitled," it didn't just end the conversation. It lit a fuse. What neither of us knew yet, as we set the sauce on the back of the pantry shelf and double-checked that his truck radio couldn't be pinged from anyone's phone but the boss's, was that entitlement doesn't back down after it's named. It doubles down. It decides a third warning is just a hurdle, not a wall. And it was already looking for its next way around, no? The week after Cameron said he was entitled to the recipe, the air in my husband's workplace changed. It wasn't the kind of tension you could see, like wires crossed or sparks flying. It was quieter, but heavier. Everyone knew something had happened. When my husband pulled into the company lot that Monday, conversations dipped for a second. The way they do when people sense a storm but don't want to name it. He told me later that his boss had made it official. Cameron was no longer allowed on his assignments. That should have been the end of it. But people like Cameron don't accept endings. They circle them, waiting for another opening. At first, he tried going through other guys on the crew. He'd drop casual questions during lunch breaks. "So what frequency's his radio on again?" "I lost it." "Anyone still got that group chat link with him in it?" "Hey, you've had his sauce before, right? Taste any vinegar? Jalapeno, maybe?" The others had been warned, so most shrugged and walked away. But the persistence wore on everyone. He wasn't just annoying anymore. He was obsessive. His boss called him into the office twice more, each time emerging with that hollow expression of someone who had just been told to sit on their own ego for a week. One morning, my husband texted me a photo of his truck door with a Post-it stuck to it. The handwriting was sharp, impatient. "You can't hide forever. Sauce thief? No signature. No name, but he didn't need one. The handwriting matched Cameron's time card signatures. That night, my husband came home late, his shoulders tight. He didn't even take off his boots before sitting down at the table. "He left a note on my truck," he said. My stomach dropped. "What did it say?" "You can't hide forever. Sauce thief." He forced a laugh, but it came out brittle. "I guess now I'm stealing from him somehow." We sat in silence for a moment. The absurdity of it all made me want to laugh, but the fear pressed harder. This wasn't just pestering anymore, it was fixation. "Are you going to tell your boss?" "Yeah," he said quietly. "Tomorrow. I'm done playing nice." The next day, his boss didn't just listen. He acted. Cameron was pulled from all field work for the week. He was told to check inventory in the warehouse, essentially a demotion wrapped in temporary reassignment. But even that didn't stop him. When my husband came to drop off paperwork, Cameron followed him into the parking lot. "You're ruining my reputation," Cameron said, his voice low but shaking. "I'm not ruining anything," my husband said, keeping his tone measured. "You're doing that yourself. I just wanted the recipe. And I told you no. You couldn't handle it." Cameron stepped closer. "You think you're better than me?" "I think I'm busy," my husband said, unlocking the truck door. That was when their boss appeared in the doorway, barking Cameron's name. The confrontation ended before it could tip into something worse, but the damage was done. By the end of the day, Cameron had his second written warning for harassment. One more and he'd be gone. For a few days, things seemed calm. My husband avoided headquarters unless necessary, staying on remote jobs or supply runs. At night, we cooked dinner together like normal. He'd dice onions, I'd stir the sauce base, and for a few blessed hours, we could pretend the world was sane again. But obsession doesn't rest. It mutates. One Thursday evening, as I was scrolling through my phone, a new Instagram account followed me, The Real Heatmaster. Its profile photo was a blurry close-up of chicken wings, dripping in what looked suspiciously like our sauce. The bio read, "They stole my recipe. I'll make it better." I froze, staring at it. I showed my husband. He just whispered, "You've got to be kidding me." The posts were absurd. Grainy videos of Cameron cooking in his kitchen, shaking spice jars dramatically, ranting about fake originality. "This is my idea," he said in one clip, slamming a pot lid. "People who hoard recipes don't deserve them. Real chefs share. It would have been laughable if it weren't so targeted." He even tagged the company in one caption. "Maybe your electricians should focus on wiring instead of hiding sauce secrets." Hot Sauce Gate. The next morning, my husband's boss called them both in. The meeting didn't last long. Cameron was told that this was his final warning. The account violated the company's conduct policy. Public defamation, harassment, whatever name you wanted to give it, it fit. He was told, "One more incident, and you're done here." Cameron left the office pale and quiet. For a while, it seemed like maybe, just maybe, it was over. He unfollowed me. The account disappeared. Work returned to its dull rhythm, wires, circuits, deadlines. But even quiet can hum with tension. 2 weeks later, my husband was at a commercial site installing ceiling fixtures when he noticed something strange. One of the younger guys was unpacking a lunchbox, and there, right in the middle, was a jar of reddish-orange sauce. The color was unmistakable. "Where'd you get that?" my husband asked, trying to sound casual. "Oh, the kid said, glancing up. "Cameron gave it to me. Said it's his new recipe. Wanted feedback." My husband asked for a taste. The kid handed it over, and the second the sauce hit his tongue, he knew. It was his. Not perfectly replicated, but close enough. The same depth. The same sweetness under the burn. Just missing that subtle roasted garlic tone he never wrote down anywhere. He said nothing then, just nodded, and went back to work. But when he got home, his jaw was tight. "He's trying to copy it," he said. "He's still at it." "Can you prove it's yours?" I asked. He looked at me, tired. I shouldn't have to prove what's mine. That night, he drafted an email to HR detailing everything. The notes, the Instagram page, the imitation sauce. He attached photos, screenshots, even the message Cameron sent from the burner number. His boss backed him up. The email was forwarded to the regional manager. By Monday, Cameron was suspended pending review. When they called my husband into the office that week, it felt surreal. He sat across from HR, explaining how a recipe meant for family barbecues had turned into a workplace obsession that threatened his peace of mind. The HR rep kept taking notes, asking if there had ever been physical contact, if my husband felt unsafe, if we'd considered filing a police report. "I just want him to stop," my husband said. "That's all," they nodded. "We'll handle it." And for the first time in months, he believed them. That evening, we made dinner together again. Nothing fancy, just pasta and a light salad. No sauce. The kitchen smelled calm. But beneath it all, there was still that unspoken question we both avoided. What happens if he doesn't stop? Because obsession doesn't end cleanly. It doesn't walk away when told. It lingers. It looks for cracks in the wall. And as much as we wanted to move on, we both knew, deep down, that Cameron wasn't finished. The fuse was shorter now, the spark closer. The next time it lit, something would finally explode. The day everything finally came to a head started like any other. It was a Tuesday morning in late September. Gray sky, air thick with humidity, the kind that makes your hair stick to your neck and your patience run thin. My husband had just poured his coffee into a thermos when his phone buzzed with a new work message. He frowned at the screen. What is it? I asked. Boss wants everyone in early today. Safety briefing. I didn't think anything of it then. I kissed him goodbye, reminded him to grab his lunch, and watched his truck disappear down the street. If I'd known how that day would end, I would have held him a little longer. The meeting that morning was straightforward. New ladder safety protocols, reminders about proper PPE. My husband sat near the back, half listening, half planning his task list for the day. Cameron was there too, sitting 2 rows ahead, quiet for once, eyes fixed forward. After the briefing, people drifted out in pairs, joking about weekend football. My husband stayed behind a moment to ask a question about a wiring spec. When he finally walked to his truck, Cameron was leaning against it, waiting. "Morning," Cameron said. My husband sighed. "You're not supposed to be near me." "Relax," Cameron said, holding up his hands. "I'm not here to fight. I just want to talk." There's nothing to talk about. Cameron's mouth twisted into something like a smile. "You think you won, huh? Got me suspended, humiliated me in front of the whole shop. Over sauce. You humiliated yourself," my husband said. "You couldn't take a no. That's on you." Cameron stepped closer. "I worked on that recipe for weeks after you refused to share. You act like you invented spice. Everyone knows I made mine from scratch now. People say mine's better." My husband met his eyes, calm but firm. "Then go make your sauce, Cameron. Nobody's stopping you." But Cameron shook his head. "No, you still owe me. For what? For wasting my time. For gatekeeping. For acting like I'm beneath you." "I don't owe you anything," my husband said. "Walk away." Cameron's face hardened. "You really think they won't side with me? They like me more than you. You're boring. You follow the rules. Guys like you always end up forgotten." My husband didn't answer. He just unlocked his truck door. And that's when Cameron grabbed his arm. It wasn't a hard grab at first, more like a desperate grip. But my husband's instincts kicked in. He pulled free immediately, his voice sharp now. "Don't touch me." Cameron's expression flickered between anger and panic. "You can't do this to me," he yelled. "You think you can just cut me off?" By then, others were turning their heads from across the lot. My husband stepped back, putting space between them. "You need to stop before you make it worse." But Cameron wasn't hearing him anymore. He was shaking, words spilling out too fast. "You ruined my reputation. You stole my idea and turned everyone against me." The boss's office door opened at the noise, and within seconds, 2 supervisors were striding across the parking lot. Cameron tried to keep shouting, but one of them stepped between the 2 men, holding a hand up. "That's enough," the boss barked. "Cameron, inside, now." Cameron stood there, chest heaving, eyes burning. He looked at my husband and said, almost whispering, "You'll regret this." Then he turned and walked inside. By noon, Cameron was gone. Permanently. HR escorted him out with a box of his belongings, his badge deactivated. Word spread fast. By the time my husband came home that evening, half the company already knew. When he walked through the door, I saw it on his face, the exhaustion of someone who'd been holding their breath for too long. He dropped his tool bag on the floor and leaned against the counter. "It's over," he said. I didn't ask how he knew. I just walked over and hugged him, the smell of sweat and sawdust clinging to his shirt. "What happened?" "He lost it in the parking lot." Boss saw everything. HR was already reviewing the texts and screenshots I sent before. "They told him he's done. No more chances." "Did he say anything else?" "Yeah," my husband said softly. As they walked him out, he said I'd see him again. The words sat between us like static. "Do you think he meant it?" I asked. He shook his head. "Doesn't matter. I'm done giving him space in my head. But fear doesn't obey logic." That night, every creak of the house sounded louder. Every pair of headlights that passed our window made me hold my breath. My husband pretended to sleep, but I could tell from his breathing that he was awake too. A week passed. No calls, no texts, no sightings. Life began to settle again. My husband went back to his usual routine, work, dinner, tinkering with his sauce on weekends. He even joked about bottling it one day. One Saturday morning, he decided to make a new batch, the first since everything happened. The kitchen filled with that warm, smoky aroma I'd missed, the scent of peppers, garlic, and vinegar mingling like an old song. He ladled a small spoonful into a jar, turned to me and said, "You know what? Maybe it's time this recipe lived somewhere safe." "Like a vault?" I teased. He smiled. "Like written down, for us, not for anyone else." So we sat together at the kitchen table and he dictated the steps while I wrote them down carefully. The roasting times, the measurements, the secret touch that gave it its depth. When we were done, he folded the paper and slipped it into an envelope labeled "Private, Do Not Share." It felt like more than a recipe. It was a boundary, sealed and respected. 3 nights later, we were watching TV when a new message flashed across his phone. "Unknown number. Just 1 line. You didn't deserve it. No name. No context." But we both knew who it was. He stared at the screen for a long moment, then blocked the number and turned the phone face down on the coffee table. "That's the last time," he said. And this time, I believed him. Winter came early that year. The nights grew long and work slowed down with the cold. Cameron didn't resurface. His name stopped coming up at the shop. Eventually, even the jokes about the legendary sauce faded into memory. We started hosting our own small gatherings again. Close friends, family, nothing big. People still asked for the sauce, of course. My husband would smile, serve it generously, but when someone joked, "So, what's the secret?" He'd only wink and say, "Just time and patience." They'd laugh, and that was it. No pushing, no demands, just appreciation. Sometimes late at night, I think about how something as simple as a homemade sauce unraveled a man. How entitlement can twist something good into something dangerous. My husband never blamed himself for it. He shouldn't have. But I know it changed him a little. He guards his peace more closely now. He trusts more carefully. The envelope with the recipe still sits in our locked kitchen drawer. Every now and then, he adds a note or a tweak. Try Chipotle next time. Less sugar, more smoke. It's his way of taking ownership back, of turning a chapter that nearly went sour into one of quiet pride. And when I see him bottling a fresh batch, humming softly to himself, I think about everything we went through. The confrontation, the fear, the exhaustion, and how somehow we came out the other side. The sauce is still his. The peace is ours. And Cameron? He's just a name we don't say anymore.